Good evening. I'm Dr. Todd Giardina. Today I'm going to be speaking to you about ways to cope with distress by learning how to de-stress. What I'm going to do is give you a brief overview of a couple different techniques that I think are a little different than what the average person knows about. And this is coming from a psychological perspective. Now, I'm not going to be weighing you down with complicated psychological theories and research, but trust me when I say that everything I'll be presenting today is backed up and supported by research. What my goal is to provide with you listeners something that's practical and applicable that anybody can use, that's immediately useful. We're going to be covering 4 different categories. We're going to be looking at how you can cope through individual means, through social means, through physical means, through spiritual means. So let's start with the individual. What can you do without anyone else's involvement? How can you cope with your distress and reduce your distress through learning how to de-stress? Well, one thing you can do is to look at how you worry. Something that most people don't consider, maybe don't even realize, is that worry is important. You need to worry. Worry serves a purpose, because worry can be a way to solve problems, to think through things. If we just went through life and we didn't solve problems, we didn't worry about our concerns, then we just keep repeating our past mistakes. Worrying about something with a solution in mind, though, is what I call useful worry. And there's certain things that involve useful worry. Useful worry can be, how can I budget better so I can take that trip? What am I going to do to improve my swing in playing softball? There's all kinds of things that have a problem with a solution. This is in contrast to useless worry, which is wishing I could change the past or worrying about the future. This is where you're just spinning your wheels and causing yourself upset without coming to any conclusions. So useless worry is, I wish I hadn't have said that, or it's a shame that it went that way, or I hope that one day my son gets married, or I hope that I get a good job 10 years from now. Hoping and wishing and regretting, these things, they usually just cause you upset because you're spinning your wheels, but you don't get to any conclusion. So useless worry causes anxiety and stress and upset. Useful worry is problem solving that can actually make you feel better. So the way that you cope with your stress this way is that you set aside worry time. Block out time that I recommend should be maybe a few minutes each evening, maybe an hour one day a week, but this is the time when you don't do anything else in your life. Your goal is to worry over the useful worry tasks. And you ask, doctor, well then what happens when I have ideas or concerns or anxieties not during worry time? Well, I suggest that you keep a notepad or use one of these fancy devices to keep track of things that are on your worried mind, ideas you might have, problems you want to solve, possible solutions to your problems. But don't think about them until it's in your worry time. And then if useless worries come into your mind, that's when distraction is the key. Do anything else. Do absolutely anything else. That worry is getting you nowhere. It's just causing you upset. Now that's one way of dealing individually. Another thing I think a lot of people could do better is prioritizing better to reduce your distress. And a way that you de-stress in this means is to have a list, have 3 categories on your list of to-do lists. Your to-do list shouldn't just be one thing, one long list of bullet points. There should be 3 categories. Number 1, things that you have to do. This is survival. This is, you have to eat, you have to sleep, you have to go to work, pay bills, care for your children, care for your hygiene. That's it. That's all you have to do. So in any given day, if your to-do list, if that's all you get done, you did enough. You did what you had to do. Then the next step, which you would distinguish, is things that you want to do. Most people don't put this on their list, but you should. If you don't set aside the time, if you don't make it a priority to do things that you desire, then you're going to be upset because you didn't have any time for me. And having time for me can feel good, can make you feel less distress. So prioritize. Step 2, what do you want to do? And what you want to do might even be a chore. Maybe you have to bake, or you should bake for your child's bake sale at school, but maybe you want to bake. Maybe you enjoy baking. It's okay if it does double duty, but be sure you have that category. And then last, and this is where it's if you have time, but it's not number 1 on the list, is things that you should do, or you're supposed to do. So if you don't have to bake for the bake sale, and you don't want to bake for the bake sale, but you should because it's the nice, appropriate thing to do, hey, if you've got time, do it. Great. It gives you that pat on the back. It keeps you in good social graces with the world. But if you don't have to and you don't want to, and it's when we shove those shoulds, those supposed tos, those social obligations and pressures, we put those at the top of the list, that's where the want tos get shoved out and we start to feel more distress and more stress. because you're filling your day with things that shouldn't be a priority, don't need to be. So there's some individual ways of coping with stress. Now let's talk physically speaking. Sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene is a word that most lay people don't think about. You've heard the term dental hygiene, I'm sure. There's lots of commercials about good dental hygiene and flossing and brushing your teeth and going to the dentist. And your dentist reminds you about good dental hygiene, and he or she will wag their finger saying, floss more often. Well, sleep is something that you need to maintain, just like your good dental hygiene. And sleep hygiene includes some really basic things, but things that I'll bet you're not doing and you could easily change. If you get better sleep, I promise your stress load will be so much less. And you see sleep and stress end up in a cycle here. I'm stressed or I'm distressed, so then I don't sleep well. But if I don't sleep well, then now my mood's worse and my coping with the next day is worse. So what is sleep hygiene? Sleep hygiene includes setting a solid bedtime, a consistent bedtime. So even if you do it for your kids, hey, you should do it for yourself too. Don't stay up till 4 in the morning on a Saturday and think that you're going to be able to put yourself to bed at 11 p.m. on a Sunday. It's not consistent, messes with your circadian rhythm, makes it harder to sleep and sleep well. Alcohol. Maybe one, possibly two, but usually one drink can be nice for a nightcap to relax you, to calm you. But drinking regularly or in excess might put you to sleep. You might pass out, but you're not going to get good restorative sleep. Be careful about alcohol. Same with caffeine. Maybe you feel like you need or want that caffeine burst in the afternoon, something to keep you going, but you're going to pay for that later at night. So if you're going to drink caffeine, don't do it in excess, and certainly have some sort of cutoff time that after X time of day, I don't drink any more caffeine. And beware, caffeine is not just in coffee and sodas, but it's also in chocolate as well. There's little elements of caffeine. And in certain teas or coffees that are said to be decaffeinated, there is still some caffeine. Your bed. Your bed and your bedroom, but specifically your bed that you sleep on, should be for sleep and sex only. If you get in bed and you work on a laptop, or you watch TV, or you argue with your spouse, or you do any number of other things in bed, certainly it's comfortable, it supports your back, it feels nice, but then your brain is associating that bed with being stimulated, being awake, being an active mind. I want your bed to be associated with calm, pleasant, relaxing things. So the trick here is if you've been awake for more than 20 or 30 minutes, laying there tossing and turning or thinking, get up out of bed. Even if you just go sit in the chair next to your bed, your brain does not associate the bed with those spinning wheels. Ideally, though, you don't want to have media in bed, you don't want to have all the iPads and the devices and things in bed, you don't want to have a TV in the bedroom. If you want to read a book before bedtime, I do find that that's pretty effective because it slows the mind down. But don't read a book you're really excited about, because then you're going to stay up. Exercise. Excellent for sleep hygiene. But here again, timing is key. So exercise wears the body out, which helps you relax, helps you sleep well. But if you exercise too late in the day, and your heart rate's up, and your adrenaline's up, and you're jacked up, then you're going to have trouble coming down from that too quickly. So even though sometimes the only time to exercise is after work, be sure you do it right after work, not late at night. Those are just a few tips. Sleep hygiene is a whole field unto itself. There are sleep specialists out there. But these are a few things that you can apply starting tonight that will help you sleep better. And if you sleep better, much less stressed. Now, let's talk about breathing. Breathing is key. If any of you have done yoga, you know one of the things they emphasize repeatedly for relaxation and for health is breathing. But the key here is breathing correctly. Most people don't breathe correctly. Most people just breathe unconsciously. Right now, you're breathing and I'm breathing without thinking about it. But let's breathe with purpose. And it looks like this. If you breathe well, you breathe into your abdomen. So your breath should bypass your chest region and fill up your diaphragm and look like a... Expand and contract. An anxious breath, a worried breath, a stressed breath is short and shallow and goes... Doesn't that sound anxious? That's not how you should be breathing. But you can train yourself. Even if you don't look like a model, I certainly don't look like a model, we have ab muscles. Maybe they're nicely cushioned, but there's ab muscles here. And those ab muscles can make your abdomen go in and out, in and out, in and out, even if I'm not tying it to my breathing. So the key is to recognize that you can control your abdomen and make your breath go deep into your abdomen, your diaphragm. You take an inhale breath, you let your belly sink open. This is the basketball belly, the pregnant belly. Let those muscles relax, and then when you exhale, you tighten up the beach belly, I want to look impressive. And that presses that balloon in there and releases the air. So the things we want to do here: tighten the abdomen on the exhale, release it on the inhale. Think of a balloon expanding and then emptying. And when you inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth like you're blowing out birthday candles. So let's see if we can coordinate all that. Inhale through the nose, release the abdomen. Then you can either use your hands to press, tighten the abdomen, exhale, blow out the birthday candles, and empty the balloon. It seems weird, it sounds weird, it feels weird. But because it's abnormal, that's why it's going to have an impact. It's different than the way you normally breathe. It's breathing with intention. Practicing this at least twice a day, ideally when you're already calm, because we want to pair that calm breathing with a calm mental state. This can have a lasting effect, not just on your stress levels, but actually biologically on your stress levels. Breathing like this with skill and talent, you do this 10 minutes, it'll feel like you just gave yourself a Xanax. It releases the same chemicals in your brain that make you feel like you had a half glass of wine. It's worth your time. And ideally we want to build up to not just belly breaths, but longer exhales. The key is 2 to 1 exhale to inhale. If you can breathe in for 1/1000 and breathe out for 2/1000, that really releases all the right brain chemicals that tells your brain relax. So 1/1000 in, 2/1000 out. Or more. But it takes practice. Now, we've done the individual and the physical. Let's talk about social ways of coping with distress by de-stressing. Number one, of course, is to look to other people. But how do you seek help from other people? This is where most people feel frustrated. They say, well, doctor, I talked to my spouse or my friend or my family and I don't feel any better. Well, that might not be entirely their fault. Sometimes it's on us to ask for help in the right way. So ask yourself, and then vocalize to the other person, what do I need? Do you need to be heard and just vent? Do you need to be supported and cared for? A hug or a kind word? Do you need advice, problem solutions? Do you need distraction? Do you want to take your mind off of it and think about something else? Or do you need that commiseration, that sense of, I'm not in this alone, feeling validated that somebody else has felt the same feeling? Now, those are several different techniques of being supported, asking for advice. But learning how to be self-aware and then vocalize it is so key. Many couples come into conflict. They come into my office and they say, well, he or she doesn't listen well or doesn't listen to me. And I point out, well, maybe there's just a mismatch in what you're providing. So the stereotype is that I hear from the wife, well, I just wanted to talk and be comforted and be heard, and he started giving me solutions. He started telling me quick fixes. And from the man in the relationship, there's often the complaint that, well, I needed to talk about what to do with this, and she kept saying, oh, I feel so bad for you. Neither one is right or wrong, but it's about knowing what's right for you. And there's no gender stereotype here, it's just easier to tell this story. But I think we each sometimes need solutions. Sometimes we don't want to think about our problems. Sometimes we want to be comforted. So ask yourself what you need and then say to the other person in your life, here's what I need, can you please provide me that now? Now, sometimes that other person in your life can't provide you that. And there's nothing wrong with the relationship and there's nothing wrong with you or them. This is where psychotherapy is so key. Because what you sit down and talk about with me, the way you talk about it is different than talking with the person in your life because I'm not in your life. I have professional training. I'm detached. I'm objective. And it doesn't matter if you like me or I like you. We can speak the truth. And sometimes the truth is what you need to hear but you don't want to hear. And that's where seeking professional support and help can be useful. So bear that in mind as another form of social support. Now as I make this segue here and we talk about spiritual coping with stress, I'd like to start with saying that spiritual coping can have a form of social support. by going to religious services, by going to spiritual events. Now, I'm not talking about joining a particular religion, but I'm talking about using your own spiritual views and putting that into practice in a social way. And I see this happening two ways. I see this by joining in with other like-minded people, by going to church or synagogue or temple. But then there's also the social piece that happens when you speak to a higher power, whatever your higher power may be. There's the saying, let go and let God. And regardless of your level of faith or spirituality, I think sometimes there's a feeling of social support that comes from that. That, hey, I'm not on this alone. I gave it to the big guy, so to speak. But talking to your higher power is different than talking to friends or family. It's different than talking to me. But you're talking, in a way. Prayer can be a form of talking. Putting it out into the world, karmically, can be a form of communicating and feeling heard in that unique way. Now, I also think that attending religious or spiritual services, more than just social, there's an important sense of purpose that comes from that. There's an intention there. There's a ritual behind these things. And again, I'm not talking about religion or faith, but I think that stress is relieved by having comforting patterns. Your ritual, I've heard people say that their ritual, that their faith is they believe in whatever sports team. And that may be silly to some, but if there's a ritual of, I always felt better when I watched the ball game with my family, and now I do it with my kids, or we always eat the same meal, or wear the same clothes, or go to the same place. It's a ritual of sorts. It's comforting, it's consistent, it's dependable, and it doesn't involve maybe the other things you're stressed about. So consider spirituality, consider religious services and spiritual services. But even more immediate, what I think is sort of the zeitgeist right now in psychology, we're stealing from Eastern views and using Western medicine. We're looking at the term mindfulness. Mindfulness is something that monks do, to live in the moment. And it's hard for us non-monks who don't live in mountains to live in the moment. But boy, will it help your mental health and your stress level. So here's how you can be mindful. I'm not going to join a monastery. And nowadays, with these little distractions, it's hard to stay in this moment. So what can you do? Well, thing one is turn off this little distraction or put it away for a little while. That helps. But there's two ways that I find work for my patients that are realistic. Because also the idea of clearing your mind and meditating, I think, is not tenable in today's society. So instead, fill your mind with this moment and narrate this moment. And it looks a little something like this. This is going to sound crazy, but watch me do it. I'm going to narrate my present moment. Right now, I'm standing here, I'm in front of all of you, I'm talking, I'm looking at, just as I said, looking, I'm aware that you're looking back at me, I see the woman's eyes there, and I just became aware that I feel a little warmth in my armpits. I think that, I don't know if I'm nervous or invigorated, but I feel that I'm a little warm in this jacket. Now I'm staying warm, and it's making me a little bit warmer, and wow, this hand keeps moving, I'm really moving my hand a lot, and now I hear my voice going quicker. Maybe I should slow down and change my pace. That felt a little bit better as I lean back, and now I see my shirt is sticking out. I like this color. It sounds crazy, and that's the reason we don't do this all the time. Your mind needs shortcuts so you don't feel crazy. You can't think about everything because, well, we'd just be overloaded. So our brains create little shortcuts and help us skip over things. But then that can have a downfall. I can half do this thing while I'm half thinking about this thing. Our brain is so efficient. So we can counteract it by flooding it with the sensations and the dialogue and the mental narration of our moment, and it keeps you here. You're noticing here. You're being here. It's hard to talk about this moment when you're thinking about another moment. Our brain's not that good. So narrate your present moment to be in this moment. The traditional narration that Thich Nhat Hanh and others have talked about is to narrate even daily chores. I am washing the dishes. I am scrubbing the dish in a counterclockwise pattern. It is shiny. I feel the soap on my fingers. I am pleased by the cleanliness of it. I put it to my right. It makes washing the dishes a meditation. Another way that you can be mindful is doing a walking meditation. And this is, as it sounds, you just walk around. But the key is to walk with intention. I'm going to walk down the street and I'm not going to think about what I'm doing tonight or tomorrow, what I did yesterday, what I'm supposed to be doing in the next 10 minutes. But in this moment, walk, and literally you're noticing the forest and the trees. You're not missing either one. Notice the trees. Look at their color. Look at the bark. Notice how they smell. Go up and touch them. Be aware of your 5 senses. See how it feels to